Well, hi again. Let's continue with the portfolio uh, uh, flows and how they decrease in this crisis. Just like in case of trade, actually, if you see that um, this these are different cases. The green one is the global financial crisis, which was the deepest one. Uh, you see how the portfolio flows, the financial account, financial flows of money throughout the world has decreased. As crisis progressed, um, and basically, what is a decrease at every day you can see, and as you can see, even though at the very beginning, basically. If I'm a, if I have financial account and if I have a lot of money, the crisis doesn't prevent me to transfer my money from one place to another place actually. Um, but somehow, in case of financial crisis, of course, I mean, the money might basically stay at the safer places and stop flowing to the places where it is not that much. It's more risky. So the financial investments that are done with people's money in different countries might be have decreased. And basically, after it has reached to 60 days, it has continued to decrease by minus 0.4% of GDP every day. In case of COVID, this decrease has been much more deeper. Actually, it is almost double as deep. So even the financial interaction within the world is actually kind of decreasing in case of COVID crisis. This integration is maybe not that much a good word. It's this integration should will be is usually done happen in a more advanced stages. Now, just the interaction between the world is what significantly decreasing in case of COVID crisis. I mean, um, world integration was already maybe to some extent slowing down. Now it has actually gone slightly going in a negative way. I mean, world is kind of not anymore integrating, but to some extent again, uh, uh, countries are becoming more independent um, economic systems. But again, this can be a very temporary threat created by this crisis. FDI flows similarly. You see different regions. This is Sub-Saharan Africa. This is South Asian region. This is Middle East and North Africa. This is East Asia Pacific. This is Eastern uh, uh, Europe and Central Asia. This is Latin American countries. As you see, I mean, uh, again, this was related to the GDP level. Sub-Saharan Africa was actually there. You see, highest amount of flow was there, and it has actually it's also experienced the lowest amount of decrease. Middle East and North Africa has actually experienced a lot of decrease, basically. East Asia also has experienced a lot of decrease as a whole. Europe has experienced a lot of decrease. Uh, well, Along with the sub-Saharan Africa, one region that is experiencing actually relatively mild decrease in FDI flows is the South Asian region. So this is actually something to note. I mean, Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asian region is doing relatively better, although everywhere FDI flows have been turned negative, basically. These are 18 years averages. So it's average, basically. Let's go down. Remittances. Remittances are sent by the workers that are working in a foreign country. And in all countries, remittances have decreased, although that decrease has not been that much. I mean, even though at the time of the crisis, maybe also because they are able to find jobs at more dangerous, I mean, because working has become more dangerous in everywhere. You might get the COVID through working, especially at the face-to-face work areas. Well, the people who are coming from foreign countries, the migrant workers, usually they are desperate and they take the jobs that are more dangerous. So maybe significant portion of them are still working, and because of that, that decrease in the remittances, the money they send home, has not decreased that much. And the highest decrease, interestingly, has come in case of remittances in Europe and Central Asia, basically, and lowest decreases Eastern Asia and Pacific, interestingly. And in case of low-income countries, I mean, even the highest decrease is less than 3%, and in case of low and middle-income countries, it's around 1.5% decrease in the remittance flow. And are remittances important? Yes, as you see, in some countries they are as high as 35% of GDP: Haiti, Nepal, Tajikistan. But even in Afghanistan, it is around 3 to 4%. But a 3-4% contribution to the GDP might still be significant. Well, these are regional growth projections, both for 2020 and 2021. Baseline is basically, I mean, you see the average assumption. I mean, at the worst case scenario, East Asia and Pacific, actually, even at the baseline scenario, even it might have it might prevent from shrinking itself, and it also is expected to have a highest amount of growth rate in 2021. China is again an important factor here, of course. Latin America is seen to be hit hardest, also with near Middle Eastern area. The recovery there is also expected to be the smallest recovery, although Middle East is hit as hard as the Eastern Europe and Central Asia, but Eastern Europe and Central Asia expected to recover. Middle East is not expected to recover, and in South Asian and region and Sub-Saharan Africa, basically both the hit and the recovery is more modest. Although, of course, these numbers are taken up to the end of May, so at that point, the COVID was not spreading to them, especially India and African countries, that much. Maybe those projections might have changed now, change now if they are made now. But we need to wait the next report to see them. Probably up to that point, we will see the actual numbers for 2020 anyway. So how much are the people? So here you have seen different effects of the this crisis, and basically one important effect that is obviously to see is actually the connection between the world countries is actually getting weaker. The globalization is kind of a hit by this pandemic. How much do people have funds to overcome the crisis? Yes, production is not done in general, and in general, even the most essential products like food might be have seen reduced production, because some essential inputs of those production that kind of production might not be there yet. But as production level decreases, as some people don't have work, how much security do they have? How much funds they have to for spending, basically? Well, in advanced countries, around 75% of the population has some emergency funds. Even that means there is a 25% that doesn't have the emergency funds. That's a significant minority. In developing countries, it's 50-50 almost. But we don't know, even for the people who have the emergency funds, how much those funds will last. And for the low-income countries, it is around the 40%. Still a significant percentage has emergency funds in the low-income countries also. But again, we don't know how much it will last. Coverage of social insurance. How much will social insurance help to the different countries? These two are actually the both are the developing countries, and there you can see 15% to 25% basically. In low-income countries, so in general, on average, you have 20% basically of population covered by social insurance. A significant portion in developing countries are not covered by social insurance. That's why, I mean, as workers, even at the severest points of the pandemic, they need to continue to go work. So in that case, the supply side of the reduction in production is not seen in this case. However, of course, if there are certain precautions that need to be taken, I mean, in the workplace, that might be a case when supply side effects are seen because there are additional costs for the workers, and it might be also possible that the sickness of some workers might, and the fear of the catching COVID might also create some effects. In low-income countries, around 4% of the people are covered by the social insurance program. And here we also don't know how much the social insurance program help. In some cases, I mean, they might not cover all the costs necessary for individual or social survival of the people. So, debt. These are the general numbers. Actually, we don't see the 2020 clearly. But in general, at least we can see that the global debt levels are increasing in general. After 2020, actually, we have seen kind of a stagnation. Private debt was increasing relatively faster there. The total debt has been increasing much more clearly because two effects are combined. And in 2020, you see a kind of a jump in the government debt. So in general, you have debt levels, that's the amount of money anyone owes to anyone, is around 200% of the GDP. And in case people are able to earn the money, I mean, it might be possible that the people who are debted might pay each other. But in case they don't have that money, they cannot simply cancel the debt because the people who have, I might have debt to the person A, the A might have debt to person B. So in that case, the whole system kind of that made that functions with debt taken and given by people and institutions might collapse because, I mean, people don't get the money they are expected to have from each other. And they might rely on that money to make their own payments to the people who are working them or who are selling them inputs. So in that case, they might not be able to buy labor power of the people or the inputs necessary for production. So this creates a fragility in the system, but at least in this crisis, if it is it will continue to be a short-term crisis, maybe this high level of debt won't create a problem in the system. It won't create an additional effect on decrease in GDP level. But we'll see. We'll see whether this is true or not. This prediction will be true or not. So exchange rates, you see the money units of different countries, how they are actually, they were affected by the pandemic. Well, each have started at the same point. In March, they start to diverge. And how they diverge, we will see this in the next part of this lecture.